Welcome everyone to another episode of Phenomenal Woman's Virtual Stage. As you already know, our theme is Against All Odds. So today we have an amazing woman in our midst. Her name is Mwila Chigaga, much anticipated interview. She works for ILO, which stands for International Labour Organization, and she's a regional gender specialist based in Pretoria, South Africa. We are so excited to have Mwila with us today. She's going to be talking to us through gender-based violence, through economic deprivation of women throughout time. She's going to be talking to us about violence in the workplace. She's going to be talking to us about how she, as a woman, has had women's sisterhood and female empowerment to help her become who she is today and to get to where she is today. So sit back, relax, and be inspired.
Thank you very much, Toby. It's a pleasure for me to be with you this afternoon. Like you said, my name is Mwila Chigaga. I'm actually a Zambian, and I'm working with the International Labour Organization, popularly known as ILO. I am their regional gender specialist. So essentially, I am responsible for promoting gender equality in ILO Africa. So my coverage is really on our continent in Africa, and I work with all ILO country officers to support my colleagues to ensure that in their work, they are actually promoting gender equality. Now, I think perhaps a good place for me to start is to explain ILO's approach to gender equality,
yes, please.
How we understand gender equality, because for ILO, I know that many of you know that ILO is an organization that was born out of the need to promote social justice in the world of work. So we are in the forefront of promoting decent work. Now, what does this mean, decent work? First of all, when you get a job, not only should the job be productive, it is important that the job is productive, that you get a fair wage for what you're doing. But even perhaps, more importantly, that your dignity is preserved. You have a voice, and you are free to exercise, your conscience, your rights are protected. We call this labor rights. Now when we are promoting social justice, for us, the issue of gender equality is actually at the core of the ILO mandate, because gender equality is an issue of dignity. It's an issue of human rights.
Yeah.
So what we do as ILO, our approach to gender equality is ensuring that both women and men are given equal opportunity in the world of work. So we recognize, we are not saying men and women are the same. We recognize that we are different, and we all know that gender is a social construct. So we know that, for instance, in our communities, in our cultures, women have three predominant roles. One, we have the reproductive role, the issue of how, giving birth to offspring, to children. We have the caregiving role. If you go into most homes, into most communities, you'll find that it is women who predominantly undertake, the care work, the cooking, the cleaning, attending to funerals, I think we all understand that. But we also have the productive role, where we are the engineers, we are the professors, we are the nurses, we are the teachers, we are the women selling tomatoes and onions and groundnuts on the street. That is a very important role. But if you look at society, you find that it is the reproductive and caregiving role that is most associated with women. You see, so we need to work harder to get the message out to say, no, actually, women are also, in most instances, have a role, a productive role to play. And unfortunately, in all our communities, in all our societies, if you look around, Toby, I was talking about care responsibilities. We perform all these functions in the home. And guess what? It is unpaid care work.
Of course.
Exactly. It is
For
unpaid.
many centuries, unpaid work. Yes, yes.
Exactly. Everyone just assumes, well, this is what women are supposed to do.
Yeah.
This is, women's role. But, nobody actually looks at the economic value of the caregiving work that women do, because there is an economic value, to the care work that is done. So essentially, for us as ILO, my task really is to ensure that in all ILO programs, policies, projects, we give equal opportunity to both women and men, taking into account their situations, where they are coming from. Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. That was a very powerful beginning to start with. I mean, I just love how you really emphasize the fact that the basics of a woman, of to care and just to be the carer, there's so much more to us. But even as carers, there's economic value in caring. And I think
Yes.
that's very misplaced, especially in the African diaspora. It's not really seen as, oh, she's actually an economical value as her just being a carer. Whereas more so, I'll say in the UK, because they care jobs here more so there's more economic value placed on that. But yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, Toby, if you recall, a lot of women would, I'm sure you've heard this phrase a lot. I'm just a housewife. That is a reflection of, how little value society puts on the caregiving role of women. And that is why it remains without an economic value. So, these days, I encourage women to say, no, I am the house manager.
Yes, I agree.
Because that's exactly what you're doing. Yeah. We are managing,
house. Yes, a whole household.
Yes, we are managing the whole household, and this is work as legitimate as any other work that is done, and it has an economic value.
I 100% agree. And I think especially girls in our generation, if a girl should say they want to be a housewife, they'll look down on her and say, do you have no ambition? Do you have nothing you want to do? But then, like you just rightly said, it is actually a full-time job and it should have economic value. So
yes.
I 100% agree with that, yeah. And just because obviously you're so passionate about this, and so am I, about women's just economic growth and power of just being economically stable within yourself as a woman, and to know that you can economically thrive as much as your counterpart male. Where did your passion come from to even want to endeavor into this current role that you're in, and this passion to see women economically thrive in a society that's telling them otherwise?
I say to people, and I've seen a saying that says, I'm a strong woman because I was raised by a strong woman. Unfortunately, my mother passed some time back ago. I'm not sure that she would have referred to herself as a feminist. But when I look back, my mother was a very empowered woman. She worked at her education. She had a diploma in social work. She was an entrepreneur. So I have grown up with that background. And yes, so I think from a very early age, I was brought up to believe in myself, and I do believe in myself. And for me, why I am so passionate about women's economic empowerment, I have noticed that when a woman is economically empowered, it strengthens their agency. What do I mean when I'm talking about strengthening their agency? It allows women to take control of their lives, to be able to make the decisions, that they need to be able to make. Where I am, I need to make the decisions that are not only good for my career, which is important to me, but also in terms of other decisions in relation to family matters, in relation to being at the table when decisions are being made. And I should have the ability to make decisions that benefit me, my children, my family, and everybody else, rather than just being, a bystander. So for me, I think the issue of strengthening women's agency is extremely important. And I'll just give you, a very quick example.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to be, controversial. But if you look at the COVID-19,
Mm-hmm.
and you see the countries that have sort of had the best response to
Yeah.
COVID-19, you look at New Zealand,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you look at Germany, you look at Hong Kong. I mean, it is no coincidence
No
that
coincidence.
they're led by women.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you remember, I always said to people, oh, people always say, oh, women are so emotional, No, women are not emotional. We are emotionally intelligent.
Yes.
This
Yes.
is why we come fit for purpose for leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And that is
Mm-hmm.
that is my view. So this is the reason why I'm very unapologetically in
Yeah.
support of women's economic empowerment.
There was actually a stat I came across the other day. I'll just read it out very quickly. It says,
Mhm.
if Nigerian women had the same opportunities as men, they will give they could drive GDP up by $13.9 billion.
Exactly. And oh, I think we shouldn't say they could.
Hmm.
I think we should say they are already. Yes, I'll give you an example. If you look at our own continent, Africa, the majority of women are actually engaged in some form of entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
Now, unfortunately, most of them, due to the gender dynamics that are prevailing in society, they find themselves operating in the informal economy.
Hmm.
So their activities are not, accounted for in the national productivity. When people are looking at the gross domestic product, they are not incorporating,
Mm-hmm.
the productivity of women in the informal economy. And we come back to the same thing. Policymakers do not realize that as women are in the informal economy, they are actually productive agents contributing to national productivity. So this is actually the issue.
Yes, I agree. I think even as someone who grew up in Nigeria, I saw so many women literally entrepreneurs, but they just haven't been labeled as one, like you've just said.
Exactly.
And that's the problem. Like we said again about housewives, they're active, they're being active participants and
Yes.
contributors to society. But then it's been looked over, and I
Yes.
think that's why I'm so inspired by your work, that you're trying to make those who have been marginalized, or not even marginalized, but being used, but being overlooked. I really
Yes.
admire the fact that your work is shedding light on the fact that these women are valuable to your society, but you're overlooking
Yes.
them for
Yes.
specific reason. Yeah. So I
Mhm.
guess
Mhm.
moving on to my next question, I really want to know from your understanding is the historical context of why us women are economically deprived historically from historical reasons. And, I was reading up on ILO, and I saw one of your main objectives is gender mainstreaming. So
Yeah.
I really want to understand more about what for those who don't understand what gender mainstreaming is, how that's one of your main things that you're trying to achieve in ILO, and the economic advancement of women. How are you planning to do that, and how the historical context of where women have been till today, how has that helped? I mean,
Yeah.
how has that, weaved its
Yeah.
way to where we are today?
I think what we try and do is promote understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Look, if you look at, we are talking about women being marginalized. Where, if you look at, issues of financial literacy, access to finance, access to land. Now, there is a reason we are where we are. So when we look at gender, there is a causal relationship. There is a cause and effect. So when we look at access to finance, land, those are the effects. But what are the root causes? Now, we need to go back to some of the root causes. A huge one is some of the cultural norms, beliefs, and values. Patriarchy, which starts in the family, where in a home it is understood, well, he is going to carry the family name.
Mm-hmm.
He is going to be the breadwinner. He is going to be the one who looks after the family. Well, the daughter, well, she hopefully will, get married, properly get married, find a good husband. And what is our definition of a good husband?
Mm-hmm.
Our definition of a good husband is one who is going to provide money. Yes.
Yes.
So a good husband better be rich so
Yes.
that
You have to bring a
they,
rich man home. Yes.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's just pause for a moment. It is that mentality, it is that mindset, it is those values that actually become assimilated for both men and women.
Mm-hmm.
So you find that most women grow up feeling disempowered. Their mindset, is not one of saying, look, I don't need to marry a rich man because I can be rich myself.
Exactly.
You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that you see an ambition gap right
Mm-hmm.
there.
Mm.
They don't aspire. And it goes to the root causes, the way they were brought up. We are who we were brought up. We don't leave that with us. We take it with us into the world of work, wherever we are. And that is why you will find that even in the world of work, women negotiating for a salary doesn't come easy for us.
Mm-hmm.
We just take the contract as we are offered and we sign on the dotted line.
I saw a stat that said that men are more, even though they're 90% not qualified, they will still apply for the job, as opposed to women. If we just see one thing that we're unqualified for, like, oh, this is not for me. This is too far up the bark for me. But men, even if they have like 2% of the qualification, they will still apply. And I agree with what you said. It's because within them they've been instilled ambition from the get-go.
Yes,
From
exactly. If you look at in the workplace, the definition of a good manager, the criteria provided is with a man in mind. You know what I mean? And one of the issues is confidence. There is this, I think it's a Harvard professor who's written this very, very good article, and I recommend it. It says, why do incompetent men become leaders? Because we associate confidence with competence. And if we go back to our values, our socialization, I mean, to be a good wife, you are expected to be quiet, meek, submissive. Those are not characteristics associated with being a good manager. So you see that as women, we struggle. We struggle just on the confidence issue.
Yes, definitely.
Yes, exactly.
And also, just talking about men, the whole why incompetent men leaders. I was actually thinking the other day. I was wondering, stats show us that women mature quicker than men.
Yes,
and our emotional intelligence is very, very advanced, more than men. So, and I think to be a leader, it requires you to have extreme high emotional intelligence. So to me, I was just wondering, it's so strange where we see many men on leadership boards, many men leading like as managing directors. And when one woman becomes a managing director, we celebrate her because it's rare. I think now it's becoming less rare. And it just to me, like you've just said before, it's that unlearning that we have to do, and unlearning within big corporations that need to be had and talked about, to understand that, not saying men are less than, but to unlearn the fact that women are not less than, and in fact we can possibly even do a better job, not to be biased, but just to unlearn those things that we've been taught our whole lives, that women are meant to be meek. And if a woman is then shown as strong or outspoken, she's not a woman, and she's trying too much to be a man. And I think it's that unlearning that needs to happen. I don't know what you think about that.
You've said it better. I couldn't say it better myself. The way I look at it, and we need to understand the gender dynamics that are prevailing. This is critical. So the first part is the learning part. You know, we, both men and women, have to understand where we are coming from, what is dictating what we are confronting right now. I call that the learning part. And then both men and women, we have to unlearn, you know, some of the aspects of our socialization. You know, women, we have to unlearn the issue of submissiveness. We have to unlearn, the way we were programmed. We say, you know what, a girl, you've got to be gentle. You've got to be quiet. You let others speak first. We have to unlearn that. And then the final side is that we have to relearn. These things just won't happen. That is why women's empowerment programs are critical. When I'm talking about empowerment, I'm talking about both the social empowerment and the economic empowerment aspect. The social empowerment is learning how to have a network, learning the importance of networks, learning the importance of information, skilling ourselves. Yes, these are important assets. I can never, ever, overemphasize the importance of having networks. Men, it's accepted. Men will go and play golf. But what are they doing when they're playing golf? They are establishing very, very strong networks. And the networks work. Now, when we look at women, we don't really, we have issues of, just juggling. I call it time poverty. Young women, when, you go to work, you have to rush home, because, you have caregiving responsibilities, perhaps you have to go and feed the baby, you have to go and do homework, it doesn't give you the time, for instance, to invest in your network. But those are important aspects. Those are skills. Those are tools, that we need to have. And this is why, as the ILO on our own continent, we run what we call Young Women's Leadership Development Programs. These are programs which we have situated in the trade union movement, in employers' organizations. Because if you look at these organizations and look at their leadership, it's basically male. So we have to go out there. So we have a program where, leadership development, because it's one thing for women to say, look, we need to be at the table. But what we want is when women get to the table, we are equipped to be at the table. When we are at the table, we must excel. Because, I hope you have noticed that when a woman fails, they will not say Mwila failed. They'll say these women.
Yeah.
When one woman fails, it is all the women.
All women have failed, yeah.
Exactly. So I think it's extremely important that, we work very, very hard on relearning. Learn the confidence. Have the confidence that, yes, I belong at the table and not the margins. Yes.
You've actually, that's something I wanted to talk about, female leadership.
Yes.
I'm 24 years old now, just turned 24 recently, and I really feel I myself am suffering extremely much so from imposter syndrome. and just knowing that I belong here. I have an
Mm.
undergraduate degree, I have a master's degree, and still I feel as though, do I belong here? Am I good? And it's just, and I think it's, I know I'm not the only one that feels this way. A lot of things have to play with it. My race, and then obviously I'm a woman, so it was just, there's a lot to play with. But I know women of other races who genuinely feel as though they just don't belong in a high position. And even if they do, and they have to feel as though they have to overperform to prove that they need to be there. And I see my male counterparts who are very relaxed. They're very they're just comfortable. I don't see that pressure of, oh, like, I need to prove myself, I need to work extra hard, I need to keep my eye on the ball and never lose the ball, because if I do, as you said, all women have failed. So can you just shed some light on that, that imposter syndrome mindset, and women just owning leadership positions and just being that woman of strength?
Let me say, I was there once. So I understand exactly what you're talking about. And I'm very well aware that it just doesn't happen. You have to work on it. And first of all, I tell women that, look, let's own our womanhood. We shouldn't be apologetic about it. There's nothing wrong with us. We should own it. We should be proud of it. But I think it's really about our mindset, our personal belief. So you need to get yourself to a position where you actually believe in yourself. Now, I will share with you a little bit of my journey. There's a reason why I am very strong on sisterhood. Because sisterhood is an asset that we women underutilize. What am I talking about? You need mentors. We need to look at those who have gone before us. We need to study them. How did they do it? I spend a lot of time, reading up bios, reading autobiographies, investing in my network. You've done the work. Yes, you have the academic qualifications, but then you also have to invest in your soft skills. Yes, these are critical. Not just the hard skills, the soft skills. I think you've heard, you need to learn to say, look, it's okay. I don't have to set out to be liked. You see what I mean? It's okay. I can go out there, be confident, speak in a meeting. I know there are others who are going to say, oh, you know what? Mwila is arrogant. But I know I'm not arrogant. I know I'm standing up for myself. I know I'm empowering myself. I know I'm exuding confidence. Now, some people, do I have to apologize if some people feel threatened by my confidence? Hell no. You see what I mean? So these are some of the soft skills, that we need to learn. I'm not saying it comes easy and it will come easy, but this is something that we need to work on consciously, working on empowering ourselves and owning it, owning our womanhood. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And you just said that you're going to just quickly share a personal story of how you came to a place where you felt that I've owned my womanhood and this is who I am, and
Yes.
I'm unapologetically myself. Could you just quickly share that with us?
Mine was a very quiet, and in many respects, a tragic story. In that, I was widowed at a very early age. I was barely 28, with 4 children. And I remember starting to have conversations with myself. I find myself in this situation. What do I do next? And I remember telling myself, I was going to bring up my children. I was going to make sure that I gave them the best education that I could. So I made a conscious decision And I know that my decision was very conscious. So it was, so how do I arm myself? What do I need to do? Where does my journey go from here? One of that, at that time, I didn't have a master's. So I decided I was going to go back to school. I was going to get my master's. And I applied to Duke University in the US. And I went to do my master's at Duke. And even as I went to Duke, I already had a very, very clear picture of where I wanted to go, where I was taking my life. So I had a vision, and I'll tell you, I was ready to make the sacrifice, and I made the sacrifice. Think about leaving your 4 children behind. You go to school, and it was a huge sacrifice, both, in terms of time, lost opportunities, spending time with my children financially and all. But I knew exactly where I was taking my life. So this is my personal experience. And as I'm saying, when I went there, I'm very strong in mentorship. So I worked very, very hard to create a network. And I sort of plugged into a network of very, very strong African feminists, selfless women who were ready to hold me by the hand and walk with me in my journey. I can tell you, joining ILO, I was headhunted. Yes, I was headhunted because I only got to find out later that, one of my sisters, my mentors, she's late now, heard about an opportunity and told them, look, I have the perfect candidate for you. She's a little bit, cuckoo, but, if we can convince her, she would be the perfect fit. And lo and behold, before I know it, I'm receiving a phone call from the ILO to say, look, we would like to have a chat with you. Wow. So, yes, so you need to have a vision, number one. You need to have a vision, a personal vision. And then you need to craft your own path. How am I going to get there? What do I need to do? What do I need to change? Toby, there are a lot of things that have changed about me. Yes, I have had to craft myself into this, person to fit my vision and my aspirations. Sometimes, I'm not beating the young women, but sometimes we just want things to fall easy on our laps.
I was just about to say that. I was going to say that.
The real world doesn't work like that. You need to be prepared, put in the hard work, So when I'm talking, I'm confident, because I know I've put in the hard work. I know I've, armed myself. Yes, if someone wants to challenge me, I'm up to the challenge. I'm not apologetic. Yes, call me arrogant. Yes, but I know what I'm worth because I work for it.
Yes, preach it.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. Because I know there's a lot of young people who will be watching, a lot of young women who'll be watching this, and they'll just feel as though, I want to do this, but I don't. Just a lot of excuses. And I think the mentorship that you've mentioned so many times, the sisterhood, having a vision, knowing what you want, and most importantly, putting the hard work and consistency. That's the only way to see your vision come to life. And I think that's something that our generation is lacking. Everything has been given to us because the digital world has made it seem as if everything falls onto our laps, but it doesn't. Things in terms of digital has changed. So easy access is there, but in terms of life basics of career progression, it's still the same. You always have to work hard. And
it has to start with you loving yourself. I always tell people that, look, you must love yourself, because if you love yourself, you will know that, look, I'm valuable. I have value. You value yourself. And once you value yourself, you want to be recognized.
Yeah, and you won't settle.
Yes. and you work for it,
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So you're not going to sit and wait for things to fall on the lap, people to do you favors. No. You go out there and get it.
Mm-hmm. I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And moving on from female leadership and just um women just owning who they are. I just want to quickly touch on what the UN women have coined as the shadow pandemic, just really quickly, which
Oh,
is
yeah.
COVID-19 has really brought out I would say it's always been a wound that's had a band-aid on it and has now been ripped off because of COVID-19, but gender-based violence and domestic violence abuse. I just wanted to touch really quickly about violence in the workplace and just violence as a whole. For me, one of the main things that really bugs me is the bystander effect, where people just stand there and watch it happen, or they can see signs, but they never, want to say anything. And to me, that's a very big, that's something that I really, really want to even start a campaign about and really get to dismantle this bystander effect. But that's another conversation. But I just would like you to just touch really quickly on violence in the workplace and the experiences of women and how us as young women and women in general can really tackle this issue of violence against women.
The issue of violence and harassment in the workplace is actually a huge issue. And in many respects, it's a deterrent to women, especially young women, getting ahead in their careers. Because, it is a very traumatic experience. And as I was talking about this the other day, every worker, every employee is a productive agent. When you go to work, you want to give off your best. You're contributing to the enterprise. Now, when you are a victim of violence and harassment, that trauma does not lend itself to you giving off your best. Just pause for a moment and think of the mindset, how a young woman feels when she's leaving her home to go to a workplace and she knows what she's going to encounter in the workplace. How do you expect that employee to be a productive employee? It's not possible. Now, I'm very happy, like we started off by saying, the International Labour Organization, we are now going into a second century. 2019, we celebrated 100 years of our existence. And one thing that I'm very, very proud of is that the first international labor standard that the International Labour Conference adopted in its second century is Convention 190 on violence and harassment in the world of work. Now, I think this was very, very insightful because ILO is now looking at the future of work, where it is now unaccepted, and we've done data pointing to the fact that women are now entering the labor market in unprecedented numbers.
Yeah.
The majority of the workforce that are now entering, the labor force are women. And all workers, whether they are male or female, need to be protected. I want to say here, both men and women have been victims and are victims of violence and harassment in the workplace. But we also have to admit that it is the majority are women and young women. And a lot of it has to do with the power relations. The perpetrators of this violence are actually those in positions of power who are taking advantage of, young women and men in the workplace who do not have that power. You've just, a young woman has just completed her degrees, and these days it's not easy to get work. You get a job, and lo and behold, before you know it, you're a victim of violence and harassment. Now, the perpetrators understand it.
Yeah.
They know exactly what they're doing. They know it when they're abusing their power. It is not a coincidence. It is not an accident. So we need to put into the workplace mechanisms of protecting, victims of violence and harassment. And unfortunately, in many instances, it's my word against their
Exactly.
word, isn't
Yeah.
it? So
Yeah.
if you look at Convention 190, what it has done, it has put the burden of proof of innocence on the perpetrator. So it has, yes, yeah, it has taken a 360-degree turn where the victim is not expected to prove their case. They're looking at the accused perpetrator proving their innocence, because there is an understanding that the majority of these people are actually people in positions of power.
That's amazing, because I think that would even break down the barriers of victims coming to speak out, because it's
Exactly.
not now saying you have to prove what you're saying. It's more so the accuser has to now prove that they're innocent. That's amazing. I think,
Exactly.
like what you said, young girls, especially coming out from university, getting their first job, and not understanding the dynamics of what the corporate world is like. As someone who's been in the corporate world for a long time, could you maybe shed some light on some signs that they're probably they're in a position where the high authorities are abusing their power towards them?
Well,
And how
like
do
I
you
said,
get out of it, essentially, if
yeah,
they are in those situations?
yeah, like I said again, remember when I talked about the learning and relearning? Um, you need to be smart when a young woman enters the workplace. You need to arm yourself. And the one of the ways you arm yourself is, at least let me talk from my experience.
Yeah.
It's important that you have a network of people around you. You avoid being a loner. Yes, you know.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's something I
yeah,
did when I started, making sure I
exactly.
built a network of people around me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you need to have a network of people around you, and make sure that people also, as a deliberate, strategy, make sure that people know that you're not afraid of speaking out. You see what I mean? Because when they are making their calculations, they are looking at somebody who is not going to speak out, somebody who's going to suffer silently. Now, when they see Mwila, oh, Mwila is very outspoken, you know what I mean? They are hardly
They will
going
never
to be.
try it. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So, this is part of my defense mechanism.
Yeah.
You avoid, being a loner. Own your power, exhume your confidence, know what you're about,
Yeah.
Because look, if you're doing your job, if you're good at your job, you don't need anyone to do favors for you. You can stand up in your own right.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
And speak up. Yeah, I agree. And just moving on really quickly about the shadow pandemic and COVID-19. What are your thoughts on that? On the fact that it's the rates of women calling in now have increased, and as a gender specialist, are there any ways in which you're trying to strategize? I know you work more so in the workplace, but just as a woman that's very passionate about women empowerment, is there any ways in which we as women, as a sisterhood, can support women who are in such situations to, encourage them to leave those situations, or to even speak out and seek help if they find themselves in those situations?
the issue of violence is, excuse me, is actually a complicated one. We need an integrated approach. Look, one of the things that has happened during COVID, essentially all across the globe, it has been noted that violence, gender-based violence particularly, and domestic violence has really gone up. Now, what we are now grappling with is what actually caused this, and it comes to the disruption. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Disruption
The
of
conversation is
family
very
life.
interesting.
Don't worry, girl. It's disruption of family life as we know it.
Mm.
First of all, what has happened is a lot of women and men, a lot of people are now working from home.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, that in itself is building into tension. There's a tension that builds up. But we've also noticed that when you're working from home, especially women, the issue of care work, you now have an extra load on you.
Mm.
Not only are you working from home, but you're also expected to provide, cook, clean. So all these issues have come into play. There is an intersectionality between the care work that women are performing and the violence that we are seeing. So we are doing a lot of work to really understand the dynamics and the intersectionality.
Mm.
Yes.
Okay.
You are working. Let me just give you an example. You have a deadline at work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you do have a husband who's, yes, also working from home, but who for some reason expects you to take a break from your job and go and prepare lunch. So you suddenly say, listen, I need to finish this. I have a deadline, it becomes a whole different conversation.
Mm.
And the issue of masculinities, and this is another issue that we need to work on. We actually need to assist men to get to grips with their masculinity cycle. They are victims of this manhood, the masculinity culture, So we need, yes, we need to assist the men, to come to grips with this masculinity culture, because they need to be comfortable knowing that an empowered woman does not result in a disempowered man. You see what I mean? Yes, that you can be an empowered man, who is loving, who is caring, Yes. So we have to, part of the work that we need to do is work on this power relations that we have existing in our relationships, and, work on mindset changes, redefining masculinity, African masculinity. We need to work more on that.
Definitely, I agree. So we've covered so many interesting topics. I've enjoyed this conversation so much. I'm sure we're going to have so many people asking us to have you back at some point. It's been such a pleasure speaking with you. Is there any final words that you'd like to say to women who will be watching this, who have felt really inspired by your words today, and who actually, in fact, want to walk in your footsteps and go into advocacy for women in different sorts? Maybe it could be social justice or what in the workplace. But is there any last words that you just want to leave with women? And if you have like a mentorship program they can join, or?
Yeah, I think the what I want to say to every woman out there, especially the young women, don't be apologetic about being a woman. Own it. Be proud of yourself. Walk tall. But also invest in sisterhood. This is critical. You can't walk the journey alone. I am here because I had sisters, well-meaning sisters, who walked this journey with me. So we are each other's keeper. And those are my parting words.
Thank you so much, Mwila Chigaga. We'll speak soon again. Thank you. Take care. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.